I'm a simple man. Show me a charge blade and you have my full attention. But I was a little worried about Seth. He seemed strong but clunky at first, kind of like Sokaku. But he's so much better than expected.
My turn. Seth in position. You asked for it. Chingy, let me help. Seth in position.
Allow me. No
James,
escape. Really fast. Sure. Now, you're the prey.
Hi, hello, welcome. Call me coughing casual, because your boy is struggling. Nothing serious. The planet just hates me sometimes. Like, you know how some people get achy joints when the weather shifts? I've got a good to fair chance of losing my eyes, nose, and voice all at the same time, and my knee aches. It's really fun. But I've already spent too much time trying to get back to 100%, and Seth is just so great. So much fun. I decided to roll out of bed, chug some tea, and let you know what's good with everybody's favorite catboy. Because really and truly, he is the perfect successor to the Charge Blade mantle. It's actually kind of funny how much of a Charge Blade main Seth feels like, because almost just like Monster Hunter, his moveset looks complicated at face value, but once you really understand it, it's fairly straightforward. There are just a lot of branching paths, so it kind of comes down to knowing what button to push when. So today, we're going to kick things off with a simplified breakdown of his kit, playstyle, and what's likely to be his most commonly used rotation. But that's not all we're here to discuss, because Seth's got layers to him and a lot of fun little tricks. So, we're also going to talk about how to buff your entire team, not just your quick assist target, and why it can be a good thing he's not fully invulnerable while using his EX special, plus the right times to use his incredibly long chain attack, and some of the hidden value behind parts of his moveset that may seem kind of useless at face value, but if you're a true Charge Blade fan and want to see Seth put in some work, I've got some fun combo tech to show you to let him do that, including the fancier BNB I'm using to initiate fights in style. So without further ado, let's get into it. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe for more gameplay focused guides, because here at Hardcore Casual HQ, we're all about the love of the game, not necessarily just the grind or the gear. We're gonna try to keep it somewhat simple today, partially because my voice can't take more than simple, but also because with Seth in particular, I think it's pretty easy to get bogged down in all these essays masquerading as skill descriptions, when at the end of the day, Seth himself is fairly straightforward, but true mastery will require knowing how all of his attacks actually play off of each other, and which to use when, so you're not wasting time, meter, or even damage. You see, our boy Seth is the definition of an off-field unit. He can be played as a hybrid DPS, but that's like a bit more niche, and I really want to focus on his anomaly support capabilities, as I imagine that's what most players, myself included, will be mainly focusing on. But I've got a couple of notes that will likely help out DPS Seths too, so no stress. Anyway, your main goals as Seth are likely going to be applying your buffs, your debuffs, and stacking Electro Anomaly. And in order to achieve all three of those things consistently, you're largely going to be playing around his special meter and his unique resource Resolve. Resolve being your main fuel source for proccing his shield, quick assist, as well as his debuff, as once this meter reaches 75%, you gain access to arguably the most important attack in his entire kit, his enhanced held basic lightning strike, which gives you all of the above benefits off of a single cast. And surprisingly, for everything it enables, Resolve is one of the easier unique resources to generate in the game. Your EX special, chain attack, and ultimate all give you the 75% you need out of the gate, while any parry will give you the remaining 25%. Plus, notably, the enhanced basic will only ever spend 75% of that meter, and you don't gain anything extra from capping out at 100, so spend freely. If you're playing effectively, you'll always have plenty to spare. Especially because Seth has really good base durations on all of his effects. You can get him on field, take care of everything you need to within a few seconds, and then swap him back out without really having to worry about him again for quite some time. So let's talk about your general game plan for putting that into action, starting with his go-to general use bread and butter combo. You ready for this? It's pretty complex, so you may want to take notes. Yep, it really is just that simple. It's an EX special, then hold basic attack during the animation so you go directly into his enhanced held basic string, then quick assist into your DPS, and you're done. Just 3 easy inputs, and you've got all of Seth's standard buffs and debuffs going, plus some decent electro anomaly on top. It's such a quick and resource-efficient rotation for a support unit that I imagine this BNB is what a lot of people are going to default to in the majority of circumstances. But Seth's kit does have some nuances under the hood that you'll want to take advantage of for the sake of improving that 3-piece combo, properly leveraging your build, as well as ensuring close to 100% uptime on his buffs and debuffs. So to that end, let's get into the specifics and his minute-to-minute gameplay. The shield Seth generates is actually responsible for his main buff, which is a flat increase to your anomaly proficiency, the stat responsible for how much damage your anomaly procs actually deal when they pop. Keep in mind, cause the buff does actually come from the shield, if you lose that shield, you lose the buff too, so just don't get too overly reliant on the shield blocking damage for you. Now, Seth gets his own personal shield every time he uses his EX special, while every time he uses a quick assist via his enhanced basic or parry follow-up attack, his team member being brought in receives the shield. The enhanced basic in particular is doubly important because it's also one of Seth's core methods for applying his debuff, which reduces the enemy's resistance to anomaly buildup by 20%, with the other being his chain attack, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Anyway, regardless of the way it's generated, the shield will last 25 seconds at base, while that debuff will last a solid 20. Like I said, very nice durations on both, which is a large part of what enables Seth to be played off-field so comfortably. But that's not all he brings to the table, of course, as unlike other support units that trigger their own quick assist, Seth's allows you to swap your characters backwards instead of forwards in your team lineup, and under normal circumstances that might mean his shield and buff can only be passed to the character immediately ahead of him in your lineup. Like in this circumstance, his buff always goes to Jane when using his quick assist. But it's worth noting that if you initiate a chain attack using Seth's enhanced basic or that parry follow-up, whichever character you switch to next gets the buff regardless of their position in the lineup. So if you can coordinate your timing, you can buff your entire party pretty easily. So especially when fighting trash mobs, when you're triggering chain attacks left and right, it can be useful to aim for triggering them using that enhanced basic or parry. And depending on your team, when fighting bosses or elites, that's absolutely something to potentially prioritize ahead of your stun DPS window, because the duration on his buffs is so lengthy, you can very smoothly set up the buff on one character with a standard quick assist, and then stun the enemy using Seth's enhanced basic or parry to give your third character the buff too, and then go to work. This is especially potent if your third character is also an anomaly unit, like a Grace Jane Seth team, for example, or like Bernice Jane Seth. This could be very useful. And this is also one of a couple of reasons why Seth is another one of those characters that really benefits from you getting comfortable with the timing for dodge countering with your on-field unit while parrying with him at the same time. This is deceptively simple for those who aren't familiar. You just have to input the dodge counter immediately followed by the parry almost at the same time. Just make sure you don't parry first, or obviously the dodge counter won't come out at all. The extra daze from doubling up on attacks can make it easier to guarantee Seth's parry follow-up attack actually triggers the stuns. You don't have to worry about finding yourself in an awkward position coming up just short. Plus, it's basically free extra damage, of course, and with Jane in particular, you want to land as many dodge counters as possible, so it's a real win-win. And since we're here talking about the tech for countering and parrying at the same time, I also wanted to let you know that quick assist units have their own unique variant of this tech. This works for all quick assist, but I know at the moment I'm going to be using this most with Seth and Jane. TLDR, as we know, quick assists don't just activate on impact generally. They require specific parts of an attack landing to trigger them. In Seth's case, it's the very end of his enhanced basic string or the first part of his parry follow-up. If you swap too early, like here where I swapped to parry while Seth finished the basic string in the background, you obviously don't get the buff. And of course, on the other side of things, if you wait too long, the quick assist prompt also goes away, and again, you lose the buff. But there is a window of opportunity there, where if you know an attack is coming and you space yours so the quick assist timing matches up, you can parry, deal that extra daze, and still get the buff. Alternatively, if you're fast enough, you can trigger the quick assist, sneak in an extra dodge counter with your first character, and still bring your next one on field with the assist and buff. These are both great options for keeping your quick assist support unit safe, because a lot of these characters from Lucy all the way to Seth have gaps in their attacks that trigger their quick assist where they're vulnerable. Like take Seth for example. Just because you swapped with the quick assist does not mean he gets damage immunity in the background. So while you bring your next character in, he can still get hit unless you're dodging with him first or parrying with your next character to cover him. Either option is great. Parry deals more daze, of course, while the dodge counter will battery a bit of energy for the quick assist unit, which, considering they all kind of rely on their EX special to a certain extent, it's hard to go wrong there. Timing is tight with this though, so don't sit around waiting for an attack to come and lose the quick assist in the process. This is just a little bit of extra spice on top, but in most circumstances, the quick assist is absolutely going to be the priority. Anyway, before moving on to the rest of his kit, it is worth noting that Seth is not invulnerable while using his enhanced basic, and you do need to finish the entire string before Seth can use the quick assist and pass along and buff, which is part of why using the EX special before the enhanced basic can be so useful, because for many enemies, the EX special will stagger them, giving Seth enough time to safely finish his attack string, and the shield from the special will keep him safe. But speaking of that special attack, you may have noticed that that can be charged for the sake of dealing more damage, daze, and building more anomaly. But, of course, this makes an already long animation even longer, and unlike Nicole, Seth is not invulnerable while he's charging his special either. Which isn't the biggest deal in the world, especially because if you're charging it, you should only be using the accelerated version, which really doesn't leave him vulnerable for... I think we can start to form a picture of Seth's overall game plan, which is likely going to include opening fights with your enhanced basic or special into basic to buff your DPS and get them on field, and from there use Seth as your go-to option for parries for the sake of refreshing the buffs and shielding as needed. Whenever you've got the special energy to spare, look for opportunities to land his charged EX, but don't be shy about just tossing out the normal variant for the sake of regenerating Seth's resolve if you don't get the chance to use the faster charged version. And don't sleep on his chain attack for regenerating resolve, especially when dealing with weaker enemies where that stun DPS phase is not nearly as much as a concern. And in general, you definitely want to aim for landing his core BMB, the EX special into enhanced basic into quick assist often, especially when it comes to elites and bosses, as that's one of Seth's best ways for quickly applying his buffs, debuffs, and anomaly buildup. Plus, don't forget, if you trigger stun with, say, your enhanced basic, for example, that also allows you to refresh the debuff on the enemy as well as buff your third character on your team as well. This can be another good example of where manual mode can be useful, because it's easy to trigger stun with his special and miss out on applying his buffs and whatnot via the enhanced basic without canceling your chain attack and sacrificing that in the process. You'll get a feel for your own flow based on your team comp, your build, and your goals. Like, are you trying to use Seth to apply shock? Are you focusing on his buff uptime? That sort of thing, right? But at the end of the day, playing Seth just kind of does boil down to a lot of alternating between various combinations of his enhanced basic, parry, and the special, based on what you're fighting, your uptime, and how frequently you're looking to leverage his quick assist. Where things will get slightly more complex is when it comes to his chain attack, and not because it's harder to use per se, but simply because there's just a little bit more to take into account moment to moment, and it does get somewhat subjective. Seth is a lot like Sokaku in the sense that his chain attack is kinda long, to put it lightly, and as a result, in some circumstances, you might just be better off skipping it entirely. Of course though, as mentioned, the only real place where that length is a major concern outside of just combat flow is when you're in a boss or elite combat scenario where you're trying to fit as much damage into each stun window as possible. Here's the thing, Seth's chain attack in particular can be very useful because not only does it regenerate 75% of his resolve, but it does also apply his anomaly debuff as well. Plus, there's also stuff like swing jazz to factor in, a disc drive set I mentioned because it seems like such a natural pick for him, and a lot of other players appear to agree. And I think it's easy to see why. I mean, Seth really benefits from the extra energy regen swing jazz can provide, and considering everything else his chain attack does for him, the 15% damage boost on top can be very nice. But it's just not always worth it in my opinion. If your set is not your main DPS, you've really got to take into account where your damage is actually coming from and how effectively that damage is going to fit into each stun DPS window. Like, when it comes to his chain attack itself, even the anomaly buildup, the damage, the daze from that attack, it's like it's fine, but it's not really needed in my experience, considering how long he can be on field in exchange for all that. And if you're running him as a support, he's likely not nearly as built for maximizing his personal damage as your DPS anyway, because he just really doesn't need to be. This is gonna vary character to character because everyone has like different combos, different goals to achieve when it comes to damage dealing, especially during stun. But using Jane as an example, personally, I'm deciding whether or not I want to use Seth's chain attack based on how many resources Jane has, how many I want to spend, and where my buffs and debuffs are at. And this does in part come down to my playstyle and my teams, but Seth's debuff can also come from his enhanced basic, which you'll be using often anyway, and it lasts like forever, so there's no real need to rely on the chain attack for that. And considering how easy it is to get more, there's no urgent need for the chain attack to regenerate your resolve immediately when your real priority when an enemy is stunned is dealing damage. At least for me, my team, how I'm playing, this does more or less leave the main benefits for Seth's chain attack as the extra anomaly build-up for shock if I haven't already set that up and I want to proc disorder, or the 15% buff from swing jazz. But in Jane's case, she can be a kind of selfish unit, especially during the stun DPS phase. I mean, if Seth's chain attack takes too much time away from what Jane is doing, well, that 15% buff kind of just doesn't matter nearly as much if it prevents Jane from landing her assaults within that actual stun DPS window, right? So, like I said, this is gonna vary based on your teams, your goals, and it can change moment to moment. I find myself using his chain attack a lot when dealing with trash mobs and elites where I don't need to really maximize Jane's on field time, and also in boss fights where I'm not really needing or trying to use all of her resources in a single DPS phase. But just play it by ear and don't get tunnel vision around doing the same thing the exact same way in every scenario. So that's more or less Seth 101, but before my voice gives out, I did want to lightly touch on some combos, some more advanced tech as well. Unfortunately, something you'll likely hear about Seth a lot is his basic attacks are useless, and I say that's unfortunate because in large part it is kind of true. His basics don't do a lot of damage, don't deal much daze, and don't help him build any resolve, let alone electro anomaly stacks. So if you're looking to just play an optimal Seth, I'll be real, you're often gonna wanna somewhat ignore his basic attacks, and you'll likely only want to bring him on field whenever you want to refresh his various buffs and whatnot. But if this ain't your first time on the channel, you'll know I have very little interest in playing characters exclusively using only the most optimal approach, and that's even more true for Seth, cause your boy loves charge blades, and I'll be damned if my new charge blade Catboy is just gonna be riding the bench all the time. I wanna see that shit on field. And it can be a lot of fun to spend a bit more time on field with Seth. So let's get into why his basic attacks are secretly kinda cracked if you like charge blades, if you like combos, and aren't too obsessed with min-maxing. His core moveset is very simple. 4 basic attacks ending on this electro finisher, paired with a shield rush as his dash attack. The beauty in it is the unique properties behind those moves. First of all, they all flow together really well. I like the animations are dope too, not gonna lie. You can cancel into his rush at any time for the sake of repositioning the enemy, which can be helpful for avoiding attacks that would interrupt you or for moving enemies away from certain hitboxes like the end of Ching Yi's enhanced BA4, which can make a lot of more complex combos a bit easier. Plus, that shield rush has a decently sized hitbox, so it can be useful for tagging certain airborne targets and for maintaining an enemy's height, as if you time it properly, it'll kind of carry them on top of the shield instead of dragging them down to Seth's eye level like so many other attacks in the game. It's just an excellent tool for combos because on top of all that, it also stays on field a decent amount of time, and as soon as you send out Seth with this, you can swap someone else in to set up the next part of your combo, and using a shield rush also allows Seth to skip directly to BA3, making the rush great for initiating strings or extending them after a basic 3 by canceling into the rush as soon as Seth touches the ground instead of going into BA4. And BA3 is great for combos too, because not only is Seth fully invulnerable as long as he's airborne while using it, on top of that, it'll lock an enemy in place until Seth touches the ground and finishes the animation, making it a great option for swap combos. Even more so because the enemy pops up just a little bit after BA3 finishes, giving like the perfect bit of like just enough extra height for certain attacks in the game that sometimes have difficulty smoothly chaining together, like Jane's held basic attack. BA3 is also your best option for chaining directly into Seth's enhanced basic. Of course, you can go directly into the enhanced basic almost at any time by just holding the basic button down, but that will often leave a small delay, which gives the enemy enough time to recover and potentially counter even. But an enhanced basic immediately following BA3, oh, that's a winner, and the core of my personal favorite BNB for trash mobs. It's simple, it's fun, and it's practical. All you have to do is launch the enemy with one of your other characters and immediately bring Seth in, preferably in neutral as that's a little bit more consistent. Immediately go into his basic string, then hold basic after BA3 starts. So as soon as Seth touches the ground, the enhanced basic triggers. Then as soon as that last hit connects, just bring your quick assist in, and from there the world is your oyster. In Jane's case, I'm often using her quick assist to trigger a chain back into Seth to recharge his resolve, or letting her stay on field to clean up. But if she happens to be in her install passion mode, you can get a really nice combo extension afterwards by bringing another character in. And with Passion, even if you didn't launch the enemy initially, you will still get that free follow-up afterwards. It's great. Seth's Quick Assist is absolutely one of the easier ones to use in combos. I mean, especially when it comes to juggling. It doesn't have Sokaku's height requirements or the same need to factor in distance and travel time like Lucy. It's worth noting though, getting stylish with Quick Assist combos does not work for every character, and timing is key, even more so if the enemy is airborne. Zhu Yuan, for example, will almost always miss if the enemy is midair while doing this. Since she just isn't a hit scan unit, it's not going to work out. It's also worth noting that as slow as it is, Seth's EX special can also be a lot of fun for using in combos. You can chain directly into it with any attack that will hold an enemy midair, like Jane's EX special for example, and you can extend your combo after it with any high animation priority move like Qingyi's held enhanced basic, which will hold any enemy in place as soon as it starts regardless of whatever else is going on. But I think that's where we'll leave the combo tech for today, partially to keep things brief, partially because I just haven't had a lot of time to be online. I don't look at a lot of screens when I'm under the weather. It's just, it's not very conducive to getting better, in my opinion. Anyway, you can expect to hear more about Seth very soon, especially because you got a Jane combo video coming down the pipe, and, he's practically glued to my Jane team. He's the Nicole to her Zhu Yuan. The two are a match made in heaven, really and truly. The cat and the rat, Ada and Leon. But I'm not just a fan because they pair so well together. Even individually, Jane and Seth are both incredible. And as the first new A-rank to join the game since launch, I think Seth makes a heck of a statement. He's got a really fun kit, a ton of future potential, and he's even fairly free-to-play friendly, because you don't really need to invest too heavily into him as long as you can pair him with a solid anomaly DPS like Jane. My Seth is level 45, largely unbuilt, and I'm kinda chillin'. I like him, so I'm gonna juice him up a bit over time, but I'm really in no rush. I'm kinda cozy here. He's doing what I need him to, and I don't feel any real pressure to push his stats too much further at the moment, which is just really nice, especially in a game with such limited resources. Anyway, I love what Seth says about the direction Endless Zone Zero is headed in, and how so far, each new character feels like they enable their own somewhat fresh playstyle, without directly power creeping the rest of the roster. If the dev team can keep this trend up, I think it'll absolutely be a big factor in what keeps this game fun long term. So, thanks for joining me today, and I apologize for whatever sniffling has made it through the editing, and for this scratchy ass voice. I never know when my personal debuff is gonna refresh. I mean, hell, I thought I was feeling better last week, and that only lasted for like a day or two, so I figured, well, I would strike while the iron was hot and get this out to you all, because I was so excited about Seth. Expect that Jane coverage very soon. Probably not this week, since I'm still bouncing back a bit, and let's be real, she's got 2 full move sets, and your boy is gonna dive deep. So, if you want to catch that video when it goes live, if you like what you see here at AC Casual HQ, please leave a like and consider joining the crew. Embrace that filthy casual lifestyle. Forget about the min-maxing and the spreadsheets and lean into the gameplay-driven fun. It's certainly not the only way to enjoy yourself, but at least in my opinion, with games like this in particular, it's one of the best ones. I mean, especially because games like ZZZ are kind of like intentionally designed to be fairly easy and accessible, so I've just never found it all too necessary at the end of the day, unless you're trying to like zero cycle or whatever. And stats definitely matter a lot more in a turn-based game like Star Rail, but when it comes to ZZZ, I mean, let me self-report a bit. Take a look at my GUN stats. You see that crit rate? This is probably physically painful for somebody out there to look at. This was my strongest character too before Jane. Yes, my Ellen is worse, and I have not had a single issue clearing any piece of content. Min-maxing is just not the biggest priority in the world for action games, but I do get why some people find their own fun focusing on optimal stats and pristine rotations, and genuinely more power to you if that's something you enjoy. It's just not my thing, and it's never gonna be as long as the time getting in the gamba are where the stats come from. But I'm also never here to dictate how you play. My main goal is always just to share potential avenues to help you find your own path to fun, so by all means, feel free to take from this video what you want and leave what you don't. As always, thank you so much for all the love and support from the community. There's a 9 out of 10 chance I'm going back to sleep after this goes live, trying to burn the last of this out of my system. So hey, leave me some fun comments to wake up to. Cheers, lads and ladies. This is your boy Casual, and I hope to see you back here sometime very soon.